Hello everyone, welcome to the daily editorial analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy brought to you by the Civilspedia team, and today's date is 2208 and 2024. Displayed here are the list of important articles from the editorial section of the Hindu and the Indian Express, and along with the explanation of the article, for conclusion we will be seeing mains answer writing. Before that, there's a small announcement. The pre-storming prelims test series of 2025 will be started from the 6th September of 2024, which is the batch 1. And along with it, to boost your UPSC mains preparation with us, All India UPSC mains open book mock test 2024 is also launched. So anyone interested can look for the link in the description. So now without any much further delay, let's get into the articles discussion one by one. Now let's move on to the first article for the editorial section. In 2024 Union Budget, there has been limited fund allocation for the welfare of the transgenders and the National AIDS Control Organization, which might have its effects in the control of HIV or AIDS. So in light of the LGBTQIA community, let us look at a mains perspective question. Discuss the importance of a legislative backing for LGBTQIA plus community and what are the challenges associated in framing legislation for LGBTQIA plus community. So first we should know the legislative backing, that is decriminalisation of the act, and what are the challenges when it comes to the LGBTQIA plus community members, and also challenges associated in framing a legislation and having policy intervention. This question is pretty much direct, so let us see how we can frame this question. First, let us see the problems faced by the LGBTQIA plus community. First is the social problems. Under social problems, the most important area of concern is the stigmatization. Social stigma leads to shame, low self-esteem and isolation of the members. It also reinforces exclusion and discrimination, making hard for the LGBTQIA to participate in a society with their own identity. Next is the family rejection. This rejection can result in the homelessness, mental health issues of members, and lack of support to have a normal life like any other members. Next is the cultural oppression. This oppression leads to psychological distress, identity conflicts, and difficulties in reconciling personal beliefs, that is their sexual orientation and religion beliefs, with cultural or religious ones, along with gender identity. Next is the economic problems. First is the employment discrimination. So for the members of the LGBTQIA plus community, there has been lower wages, job insecurity, and limited career advancement, which contributes to economic stability and stops them from accumulating wealth. Next is the wage gap. Such wage gap leads to financial disparities affecting their savings, their investments, and their retirement plans from a very young or a starting age of the community members. Also, it promotes economic inequality within the community also. And next is the high rate of poverty. LGBTQIA plus individuals, especially the transgender members, are more likely to live in poverty, thus having effect in areas like healthcare, education, and other essential services, which brings in cycles of disadvantage and stops them from having an upward mobility. Next is the civil issues. Under civil issues, the first is the legal discrimination. Such legal discrimination have systematic exclusions and mistreatment of the LGBTQIA plus individuals, denying them equal rights and individual representation. This stops them from having opportunities in a society and makes them a marginalized community. Second is the criminalization of same-sex relations. Subjects of the LGBTQIA plus individuals are prone to arrest, imprisonment, fines, or even deaths just for the mere fact of having their own identity. This makes them to live them in secrecy, limiting their freedom and quality of rights, and forcing them to live under the wardrobe and denying their right to live. Next is the challenges in parenting and adoption. Barriers to forming families and affection leads to legal as well as financial difficulties. And also it leads to the marginalization of the LGBTQIA plus communities, families also in a society. And next is the political underrepresentation. Because of underrepresentation, it limits the ability of LGBTQIA plus individuals to influence laws and policies and having a judicial interpretation. Thus, it affects the cycle of marginalization of the LGBTQIA plus community members and reduces their visibility in the public sphere. Next is the psychological issues, which is very important. The LGBTQIA plus community members face major concerns such as the minority stress, which is the chronic stress experienced due to stigmatized social status, that is the marginalization of their community. Minority stress can lead to heightened of anxiety, depression and other mental illness. It also contributes to feelings of isolation, low self-esteem and internalized homophobia or transphobia. Next is the suicidal behavior. There is higher risk of suicidal ideation and behavior, especially among the youths of the LGBTQIA plus members due to bullying, cyberbullying, rejection, discrimination and internalized stigma. Next is the identity conflict. Identity conflict can create psychological stress which leads to confusion, guilt and anxiety arising from conflicting identities. That is why it is important to have meaning for every letters of the abbreviation, which is the LGBTQIA plus community, so that everyone will feel represented at the same time. These conflicts may hinder the development of cohesive and positive self identity. And finally, other psychological issues like the PTSDs and traumas and even ADHDs. Now, let us look at the impact of decriminalization of Section 377. First, let us have a very historical context. The Section 377 was a colonial era law criminalizing same sex relations. According to the IPC, that is the Indian Penal Code, it criminalized carnal intercourse, which is against the order of nature, which was interpreted to be a homosexual act. Section 377 was introduced by the British colonial government in India as a part of border effect to improvise Victorian era moral values. Let us move on to the legal challenges of the Section 377. First is the NAS Foundation case of 2021. The NAS Foundation, an NGO that violated fundamental rights, an NGO that filed a public interest litigation, that is PIL, in 2001, arguing that the law violated fundamental rights guaranteed by the Indian Constitution, particularly the rights of equality, privacy, and freedom of expression. And next is Navtej Singh Johar case in 2018. In a historic judgment delivered on September 6, 2018, the Supreme Court decriminalized the Section 377. The court held the criminalizing consensual same-sex relations violated the fundamental rights to equality, non-discrimination, privacy, and dignity. Now, let us look at the impact of this decriminalization. It ensured LGBTQIA plus rights, encouraged open discussions, and helped the community to live with dignity and without fear of legal persecution. The ruling encouraged more open discussions about LGBTQIA plus rights and issues, though societal acceptance continues to evolve even now. However, the ruling did not address other issues of the community such as the marriage, housing and employment, which is the other aspects. Looking at the legislative possibility, the need for comprehensive legislation to address remaining challenges is still in work. In 2013, the Supreme Court of India overturned the Delhi High Court's ruling in the case of Suresh Kumar Kaushal versus NAS Foundation, reinstating Section 377. The court argued the amending or repealing the law was responsibility of the parliament and not the judiciary. This decision was met with widespread criticism and disappointment from human rights activists and the LGBTQIA plus community members also. The benefits of legislative interpretation for the LGBTQIA plus are: this can bring a lot of progress in the lives of the community members, such as marriage, equality, housing, property rights, adoption, and political representation. Now, let us look at the challenges in framing a law for the LGBTQIA plus community. First is the cultural and social resistance. Opposition from the cultural beliefs, religious doctrines, and societal prejudice can be a concern. It declines them having a garner public and political support for their legislation. Next is the political opposition and polarization. Concerns like delays, watering down of laws, or outright rejection leads to the sustenance of framing a law for the LGBTQIA plus community in a society having a legal backing up. Next is the lack of awareness and understanding. Concerns like ineffective or overly broad laws and difficulty in building public support can be a hindrance. For example, having a very generalized laws can be an hindrance to have a law for LGBTQIA plus communities. Because of this, there might be difficulty in having public support for the community also. Next is the complex nature and their problems. Concerns like addressing the diverse needs of different subgroups within the LGBTQIA plus community is a concern. It can leave certain individuals to not have a proper adequate protection or recognition, as everyone matters in any community. Thus, let us look at the way forward for these problems when it comes to the community. First is generating awareness. This ensure the right and progress we need. Next is the implementing anti-bullying committees and laws. Next is exploring the possibility of framing a legislation. And finally is the considering the opportunities of the pink economy, that is, which denotes the economic influence of the non-heterosexual people. Pink economy is also called as pink market or rainbow community. The next news is about the lateral entry when it comes to UPSC, as the article discusses on how this entry would further diminish presence of marginalized communities, and at the same time how corruption, it might lead to corruption also. So let us see a mains question in reference to this article. Discuss the origin and evolution of the lateral entry scheme in Indian civil services. First, to address this, we need to look at the historical evolution and any act or policies according to it. Next is analyze the key recommendations and reports that led to its formal implementation. How does this scheme impact the traditional recruitment process, and what are the potential legal and constitutional challenges associated with it? So, to know a framework of this answer, let us see what the article talks about. The major challenge is the corruption and its impact when it comes to the marginalized communities. First is the unequal access to the resources. Corruption often results in the unequal distribution of public resources, disproportionately affecting marginalized communities who rely heavily on the government services. Next is the exacerbation of the poverty. Corruption can divert funds meant for the social welfare programs, leaving the marginalized group members without essential services such as healthcare, education, and housing, etc. Next is the increased vulnerability. Corruption can increase the vulnerability of marginalized groups by weakening social institutions meant to protect their rights, leading to exploitation and abuse. And finally, is the limited political representation. Corrupt practices can undermine the democratic processes, limiting the political representation of the marginalized communities and perpetuating their exclusion from decision making. First, let us see the origin of lateral entry. First, Administration Reform Commission 1996. This helps to know about the historical representation of the lateral entry system. Under the Morarji Desai Committee, the first administrative commission, that is ARC, set up in 1966 under the chairmanship of Morarji Desai, laid the groundwork for the reforms in the civil services, including the idea of bringing in reforms for specialized skills. It focused on the professionalization within the civil services, but not having direct support to the lateral entry. That is, it indirectly supported the idea of recruiting experts from outside the traditional bureaucracy. Next is the Second Administration Reform Commission 2025, which was chaired by Veerappa Moily. This commission was more direct in its recommendation for lateral entry. In its 10th report, that is Refurbishing of Personal Administration, the commission explicitly recommended the induction of professionals from private sector, academia, and public sector undertakings into senior governmental positions. Also, need for specialized skills. The ARC emphasized the lateral entry was necessary to bring in fresh ideas, specialized skills, and domain expertise that might be lacking in the traditional civil services. But this again questions the importance of having a very universal exam such as the UPSC exam. And third recent is the NITI Aayog's endorsement in 2017. It is a 3-year action agenda plan endorsed lateral entry. The government premier policy think tank strongly endorsed the concept of lateral entry. In its 3-year action agenda, NITI Aayog highlighted the need to bring in experts from outside the government to enhance the quality of administration. Recruitment of domain experts at middle and senior government levels were included, such as the sectoral group of secretaries was an idea which was further supported by the sectoral group of secretaries on governance, which recommended the recruitment of domain experts. Let us see the reasons behind lateral entry. First, it helps to bring in expertise. It helps the government to tap into specialized skills and knowledge from private sectors, academia, and other fields which may not be available within the traditional civil services, such as the examination, even though there are people from science background and other engineering background, where UPSC was mostly into social background traditionally. Next is the having a fresh perspectives. It aimed for introducing fresh ideas and perspective into governance, potentially leading to more innovative solutions to complex problems by including a lot of stakeholders. Next is addressing skill gap. Lateral entry helps fill skill gaps in critical areas like technology, finance, and management, which are essential for effective governance in rapidly changing world. And finally, filling vacancies. The shortage of IAS officers in key positions has led to more lateral entry to ensure the important roles in governance and are not left for vacant. Now let us see the rights affected due to lateral entry. First is the reservation rights, which is very important. The lateral entry process has been criticized for bypassing the reservation system, which affects the representation of SC/STs, OBCs in the higher governmental positions. Next is having an equal opportunity. The lateral entry might compromise equal opportunity principles, such as the exam in itself, which tries to bring in a lot of qualified aspirants. The equality is questioned as external candidates can bypass the competitive exams. Next is the merit based promotions. Concerns about undermining merit based promotions. Some argue that the lateral entry could undermine the merit based promotion system within the civil services, affecting the career progression of regular civil service servants. Now let us look into the constitutional provisions and principles. First is the Article 16. Under Article 16, it guarantees equality of opportunity in public employment. It also includes provisions for reservations for backward classes to ensure that they are adequately represented in the public sphere. Next, in regard to the lateral entry, let us see the next provision which has been affected, that is the Article 335. Claims of SC and STs must be considered in public service appointments and have a balance with maintaining administrative efficiency and equal representation. According to the lateral entry, let us see our government's rationale and its difference when it comes to this new introduction. First is the government's position. The government defends lateral entry by arguing that it is necessary to measure to bring in specialized talent into the civil services stream and address the expertise gap. The government may also argue that the single post exemption from reservation is legally sound and has precedence in other areas of public employment. Next is the efficiency in administration. The government might invoke Article 335's provision that efficiency in administration must be maintained, suggesting the lateral entry is aimed to enhance the effectiveness of the governance by bringing professionals and specialized skills. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to give a like, comment and a share. And to further not to miss any other contents, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a nice day.